Turning Points in U.S. History, Dust Bowl. Chapter 1, Blowing Dust. The year was 1931. A dark cloud appeared in Oklahoma, but it wasn't rain. A giant dust storm blew dirt and dust across the Great Plains. The dust storm was so great that it blocked out the sun. Many dust storms damaged this area between 1931 and 1939. They ruined farmlands. Dust covered entire homes. This time is called the Dust Bowl. The area of the Great Plains that was hit the hardest is also known as the Dust Bowl. In the late 1800s, farmers turned grasslands into the Great Plains to farmland. They farmed the same land many times. Farmers plowed the soil too much. They let their livestock eat so much of the grass that it damaged the land. Farmers plowed even more grasslands in 1929 and 1930. Why? The country entered the Great Depression. People across the country were poor. Farmers needed to grow more crops to make enough money. A drought began in 1930. The crops could not grow without rain. Their roots had held soil in place. Without the plants and their roots, soil began to erode. Did you know on May 11, 1934, dust from the Great Plains reached the Statue of Liberty in New York? It had blown almost 1,500 miles. Dust storms began in 1931. In 1932, there were 14. In 1933, 38 more took place. The worst was on a Sunday in 1935. April 14th, 1935 was called Black Sunday. Take a look. Take a look at the map below. In which state was erosion the worst? The part that is colored in red is the most severe erosion. The part in the purple was severe, but not as bad. And the part in the yellow was less severe, but still had dust storms. This is the area of the country where the Dust Bowl took place, and you can see that on the larger map of the United States. Chapter 2, Farmers on the Move. The drought and dust storms lasted 9 years. People wore masks to cover their mouths and noses. Why? Breathing in the dust made people sick. Some even died. Without crops, farmers could not make money. They also could not feed their livestock. Many packed up and left. Where did they go? Many went to places that weren't hit by the drought, like California. They became migrant workers. They picked crops for little money. What do you think? The U.S. government hired photographers during this time. Their photos appeared in popular magazines. They helped people in cities see what was happening. How does news spread now? Is it similar or different from this time? How? You could just think about that question. Chapter 3, End of the Dust Bowl. President Franklin D. Roosevelt helped. He started conservation projects. People were hired to plant trees. The trees helped block wind. Their roots held soil in place. New farming techniques helped too. Crop rotation was one. Farmers rotated which crops they planted in each field. This kept the soil healthy. Irrigation systems helped too. They brought water from rivers or underground to farmlands. This way, crops got water even if it didn't rain. What do you think? Starting in 1933, the U.S. government began buying large amounts of land. Why? So people couldn't farm it. They also replanted grasses. This helped soil recover. Do you think the government should protect land? Why or why not? You can just think about that question. Rain finally fell in the fall of 1939. Crops grew. The Dust Bowl ended. But the new ways of farming were here to stay. The U.S. government still helps farmers conserve soil today. They pay them not to farm certain fields. Many farmers use irrigation too. Did you know farmers grow foods we eat? Like what? Corn. Corn is the most popular crop. It isn't turned into foods like cereal. It feeds animals too. Quick facts and tools. Take a look at the timeline. Starting at 1930, drought begins in the Great Plains. Drought is when there is no rain. Then in 1931, dust storms first hit the Great Plains. In 1932, 14 dust storms occur. In 1933, 38 dust storms occur. The first soil erosion camp opens to help control dust storms. March 4th, 1933, President Franklin D. Roosevelt takes office. He helps the country out of the Great Depression and the Dust Bowl. May 1934, the dust storm spread from the Dust Bowl area. By this time, about 75% of the country and 27 states are affected. April 14th, 1935, the worst dust storm occurs. Scientists estimate that as much as 3 million tons of topsoil blew away on this day. People call this day Black Sunday. March 1937, the Civilian Conservation Corps begins planting trees on the Great Plains. 1939, rains end the 9-year drought. And this is the glossary with definitions of some of the words we saw in the story.